RTD Live Talk. Figure I will log on tonight and have a little late night chat with whoever wants to join me. So there's a lot of things worth talking about tonight, of which war is definitely one of them. And so looking to get your thoughts on what's happening around this world and what's going to happen in Syria if the U.S. decides to go into Syria and to begin bombing, as they always say, the mainstream media love to say, the Assad regime. So we are live right now, and I'll give it a few minutes before I begin chit-chatting away, but wanted to find out who's checking in with us so far. So if you are new to RTD Live Talk, welcome. But if you're old, let me know where you're calling or where you're checking in from in the chat section. I figure I'll be on just for a few minutes, trying out a new format as well to see how it works. So love to get your feedback on how it is, how it's going. So I got Ace One from DC. Yep, it is in a firestorm. Yeah, I just actually made a tweet a minute ago about how much of a war zone it is in Washington, D.C. right now with everything that's happening with our current administration and his lawyer being, all his information being graded. So that's one of a kind, man. It's not too often that, you know, people would be after the current president the way they are with President Trump, but that's to be expected. And I also mentioned in that tweet that it's the deep state versus we the people. And so I think this whole Syria situation plays into the idea that even just a hint of leaving Syria was enough to stir up some type of false flag type of event, because, you know, there's two sides to every story, and the story coming from across the waters is that there was no casualties, there was no true chemical weapons. And so, yeah, everything that comes from the mainstream media from the West is very questionable. So we have Tony checking in from Afghanistan. Man, Afghanistan. Tony, what are you doing in Afghanistan? Are you in the military or something, or live over there? Or, that's interesting. I never had anyone check in from Afghanistan. Interested to find out how things are in that neck of the woods. I believe we still have troops over in Afghanistan, heavily, I'm sure. Tuned in from Philly. Welcome, my friend. So my question tonight is, I want to pose a couple questions, also get your take on some of the news updates I posted in regards to the de-dollarization process, and then also just test a couple things here in regards to this new format. Get to a few comments from the from some of the viewers of those videos, and show a little love to some people out there who left a comment. So we have Poland 1960 from Arlington, Texas, through YouTube. So it looks like we have a call, which is right on time. Hello, caller.
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good, my friend. Who's this? Where you calling from?
This is Andreo. I'm calling from Atlanta, Georgia.
Andrea, nice to meet. Nice to talk to you, my friend. What's on your mind this evening?
Okay. Big fan. I'm watching you live right now. But my question is, with China's new Silk Road,
yep,
and the new cryptocurrency that's sweeping the world right now, how is that going to affect and change everything? And how soon do you think it might take place?
Whew, good question, man. That's a lot wrapped in one, because when you have the whole idea of the cryptocurrency, the blockchain technology really begin to take off, and we haven't heard much from this side of the ocean as to how, you know, China will implement their own blockchain type technology, knowing that they're working on something. And so I think it's all going to play out. It's all going to be pending upon what happens in the next couple of months / years, especially with this whole Middle Eastern conflict that's underway right now. And so from all the articles I've been posting on the de-dollarization process and the various scenarios of how it all can unwind, it's good to say that whatever China or that Eastern Hemisphere countries look to do, it's going to be as a solution probably for their own citizens first, to help stave off some of that monetary restructuring that's going to take place. And then it might eventually roll out as some form of international trading attached to gold. So I see as a scenario China attaching gold to the blockchain to make it easier to do international trade once no one really wants the Federal Reserve note. So as you know, prior to Bretton Woods, gold was the way that we did our international trading. And so going back and forth to these vaults is going to be pretty clunky and pretty heavy. So I can see China and Russia probably coming out with a crypto gold type of backing that makes it, as good as gold, to where people will feel confident that at any minute you can redeem your cryptos, whatever it might be, for gold physically.
Right.
So I kind of see that happening, but after the fact. I think there's going to be some shakeup first, maybe some type of market hiccup, but I think it'll probably roll out when it's needed most, which is when people are panicking and there's unfortunately probably people rioting and blood in the streets, as a lot of people like to say. So that's kind of my take on it from what could possibly be a scenario.
I understand. Thank you so much, Mike, and keep doing, brother.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you for the question and the call. Thank you. Very interesting. So yeah, it's so many scenarios as to how this can unwind, but everyone would agree that something is happening and something will take place that will cause an unwinding of what has been accepted for the last umpteen years, which is the crumbling of the Bretton Woods Agreement, which was defaulted on in 1971. So that's just my 2 cents on the matter. But let me get to a few questions. I see people in the chat section. So we have, let me see. Crypto is our chance to be the change we want to see. Green light from Hawaii. Man. I'm not saying that crypto will not play a part in the future because it's already positioned itself to be that way. But as far as banking on it for your future, that's where I'm like, I'd rather stick to metals, man. Be honest with you, just me myself. Another call. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, what's going on, Mike? This is Kenny from Pensacola, Florida.
Kenny from Florida. How you doing, my friend? Good evening.
Good evening. So I just have 2 questions.
Yep.
So one question would be about inflation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about anybody else, but as far as consumer goods, when I look through the store, it's like everything is starting to raise in price. It's like 20-ounce drinks are costing around $2 now, when before it used to cost $1. And before that, it's 50 cents. Yeah. It's like everything's starting to raise in price now. And I don't think people really notice it. Like I don't hear anybody talk about it, but it seems like inflation is coming, or it's here. Like it's getting really bad.
Yeah, I do agree. I personally don't really pay attention to the sticker price of things, just because I, I'm married with kids, so I'm kind of set in a routine where my wife does all the bargain shopping. But yeah, just as far as just the idea of going out as a family these days, man, like, to take a family of 4 or 5 people or just go out in general, I look at the bill nowadays and it's like $30, $40, $50 at a fast food restaurant, man. I went to where'd I go? I went to Wendy's the other day in between some events, and just me and my son there, it was almost $30. I'm like, man, for combo meals. So yeah, that is a clear sign that something is wrong when what I remember. I'm gonna date myself a little bit, but I remember when rallies. Do you guys have rallies in Florida, or you got Checkers?
We had Checkers. Well, yeah, Checkers, yeah.
Okay, so when rallies first came out, I was in middle school, and I remember it was a big Buford combo meal was $1.99. So now that same combo or regular burger from that place is now like $5.99, $6.99. So if that's not inflation, I don't know what is, my friend. So people will start paying attention because they're going to feel it. Like when you go to the store and your normal paycheck or your allocated funds for groceries no longer is able to purchase what you've used to purchase in the past, you're going to start noticing some stuff. And usually people just adjust to buy cheaper quality goods or just substitute it with something else. That's how the Fed tends to calculate it. When things get expensive, they say, oh, people just don't buy meat no more. They buy lunch meat instead of beef, or something like that. So yeah, people gonna feel it, and they'll definitely make some adjustments.
So I think like the problem with that is like those prices won't come down. Like you remember when like chips were $0.25,
mm-hmm.
like it would never go back. It would never, prices of these things that once they change, once they're at that price, it seems like it will never come down. And that's the scary part. Like with gas, because it's sensitive to oil, it kind of fluctuates in price.
Yeah.
Gas did go down.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess it's because our dollar got stronger, but I mean, some of these consumer goods prices, they don't go down. So that's kind of a scary thing.
Yeah,
that's my first question.
Yeah,
my second question is about like the term like as good as gold.
Mm-hmm.
Like talking about cryptocurrencies. It just seems like you might as well just get the gold then, because if the main problem was like printing too much currency for you had gold certificate notes, and I guess we went into war and we printed out more notes. I mean, it seemed like they could just do the same thing with crypto. They could just somehow create more crypto than gold they actually have, or they can, you know, ship the gold off to buy something else and it not be logged. You know, it's like it just seems like you know you go with the gold or silver physically, then have, you know, something just as good as gold. It seems like it doesn't work throughout history.
Right, and the thing is, depending on the source of that crypto or blockchain linkage there, if it's a centralized, such as a central bank, then at that point it's going to be controlled, and you're subject to it's subject to greater manipulation a lot easier. Whereas if it's a private, open source, decentralized aspect, then I would be more concerned with some type of hard fork or something like that, to where they'll spin off some, you know, if it's like some just quote gold coin, it'll be gold coin light, you know what I'm saying, to some type of thing like that. So yes, you run the risk of having to trust this new technology which is being rolled out. And as you say, I would rather just hold something tangible in my possession or somewhere near it, or where I can get to it if need be, as opposed to having some type of, once again, some type of mediary, third person or third party entity that's responsible for, and I have to trust them to make the right decisions, especially if they're in some foreign territory. And there's actually, speaking of that, there's a new token that I just came across last night. It's called, I think it's DigiX or something like that. And so it's just rolling out. And one of the guys who I follow is a crypto guy, and he was giving an explanation as to how he read through the white paper. And basically it's a commercial bank of which you have to be, you're subject to the laws of that particular country. You're subject to the laws of that company within that country, and if you're a United States citizen, it's not really in your favor anyway. So you're going to go through an arm and a leg to try to get your gold if you can. So it's like, what's the point in really, you know, doing that, in my opinion? But I do believe it's good to have a small piece of something in something like that, just because you never know. That'd be a good way of diversifying, still having something tangible and something that you own, that you got in many forms. So that's my opinion.
Okay. Well, cool, my guy. I appreciate the conversation.
My pleasure, my friend.
See you later.
Thank you, boss. Appreciate the call.
Peace.
Yeah, very interesting there. Linkage. As good as gold. If it's as good as gold, might as well just have your gold yourself directly. That would be your best bet. That would be your best bet. Let me get to some questions in the chat over here. It said, isn't Veritasium the new crypto gold? Andrew P. Veritasium, other than having Reggie Middleton as a guest, if you haven't had a chance in the RTD University section, Reggie joined me 2 years ago, I believe, giving some updates about that. But I don't think it's as good as gold. I think it's more going to be some type of platform that will be used in the financial markets to disrupt that type of industry. So I don't think it's going to be, because I actually remember him saying that the actual tokens in itself is only as valuable as it's being utilized in the services that he's looking to disrupt. So I don't think, you know, holding on to Veritasium as a gold type of item will be worthwhile, other than the fact it'll appreciate as it does disrupt the services or the financial industry is looking to do. So that's just my opinion. It says U.S. will be on crypto because it has no gold, or will head fake most of U.S. citizens into thinking they do have it. China will be backed by real gold. Yeah, and that's one thing. People don't realize that, you know, the Chinese and as you saw, if you guys joined me for my last RTD Live Talk last week, one of the callers actually lives in the Asian area, and he was saying that you can go to your banks, you can go anywhere. They got kiosks set up everywhere, giving their citizens a chance to purchase gold. So they are basically preparing their population for the release of some type of gold, legal tender, or crypto, or, you know, yuan backed currency or something like that, to go along with the international yuan, which will be redeemable in gold amongst nations. So, and also prior guest Jim Willie mentioned about the idea of there being two different types of yuans. There's be the local one that is backed by gold amongst the citizens, then the international one, which, if that could be the case of having two dual currencies, one for international, one for domestic, the international could be crypto based, because governments will probably tend to be willing to trust China, because they all know that they're sitting on a large amount of gold. So just my 2 cents there. It says, based on the last video, it appears the U.S. is controlling the speed and process of de-dollarizing. Could this mean the entire idea of de-dollarizing is a U.S. concept? Think about that for a second. Tony, I do agree. after reading that from that perspective there, the way it was presented, it let me know that, and what really hinted at it is the fact that out of the two ideas he positioned, one was that if you are of the mindset that the entire global financial system is under the control of a small few, then it would be ideal for them to prepare and to plan their own reset, so that they can get ahead of the collapse or the restructuring by utilizing China as the mechanism that issues that out. And so because China's holding on to a large amount of treasuries, it's good to say that they don't want to dump those into the market completely, because the whole world would panic. And at the end of the day, who's going to buy all those treasuries? Nobody. The Federal Reserve will have to monetize all that, which means more inflation, more Federal Reserve notes in existence. So I could see the banking establishment behind that idea, and that means that they're probably working with China and Russia somehow, some fashion to present the idea that they're de-dollarizing. But whether they are or whether they're not, time will tell. But one thing we do know is the Federal Reserve note, what everyone tends to think is going to be around forever, will no longer be the case. It says gold for bigger purchases, silver for daily uses. I would rather use a currency backed by a computer network than one backed by war. Green light. Yeah, and that will be, it all boils down to confidence and faith in the idea that the source behind it is a credible entity that, it will not manipulate it, which every government central bank has shown that they will, because with the cryptos, it's still new. I think that a lot of people are putting a lot of faith and confidence into something that is literally less than a decade old. And for the most part, I would imagine that out of everybody viewing right now, a majority, I could be wrong, but majority of the people viewing us right now that are aware of cryptos are all new adopters, which means they've come about because they've heard about the rave and the craze that's happening since December with all-time highs. And a lot of people are newbies in this field and don't really understand the technology behind it, which is very disruptive and very promising. But, the idea that just banking on cryptos is, doesn't really set well with me in my gut at the end of the day. Yeah, cryptos didn't make sense to you until it did. Yeah, I personally, I always study trends. So I'm always looking for things that seem disruptive. So anything that can, piss some people off, that stands to lose a lot, I tend to follow those type of things, whether it be in the financial world or in the self-help world or whatever. And so when I heard about cryptocurrencies, years and years ago, I was like, this is something different. And at that time, they were extremely cheap. So it was a no-brainer for me to experiment with it, just because you never know. And so far, it's been very promising. Just upvoted are your statement posts from RTD. Sloppy Style 2022. Appreciate it, my friend. Thank you for doing that. Crypto didn't make sense. What was it? I was reading an article, and the IRS wants you to file income tax on Bitcoin and etc. Donovan Zion. Yeah, that's the whole tax situation is another issue, because just this year is the IRS, or last year and this year, the IRS really pressed to find out who's been doing what. And so ever since Coinbase gave up 2 years of information, it's good to say they probably gave up, from, I think it was 2014 or 13 up until present. So they're aware of who bought what. Now the big issue is if you're not actually exchanging them, or if you haven't sold them, will they still ask you for what your portfolio looks like, just to make sure that it lines up with what, on paper it says you purchased in comparison to what you're still holding now. So that's going to be a true test of what this taxation on cryptos plays out to be. It said, Tony Blair, like the U.S. needs China and China needs the U.S. So who is going to be the first to blink? No one, with the motto, go forth and remain calm while we burn the furnace to heat the yeah. I'm retired now, receiving pension, and still have my old 401k, but still too young to take it out without penalty. What are your thoughts of rolling into a gold, silver, and or land invested IRA LLC? Well, Polanda, 1960. Not able to actually share with you advice or anything of that nature, because I'm not certified. I'm just a man with an opinion. But as far as what you can roll over, I would encourage you to, if you have not yet, visit the RTD University link and web page where I've had a lot of guests that have hinted at and talked about what the whole 401k and retirement vehicles, what's going to happen to them at the end of all this monetary chaos as it unfolds. So I would imagine that anything that's paper denominated, any type of financial institution created device or vehicle. And so keep in mind that everything that has been recommended as an investment tool, whether it be 401k, 403b, IRA, Roth IRA, you got your My IRA through the government now. All those things have been designed to keep your money in the system for as long as it can, and it's your money inside the system which funds and keeps things afloat. So if a lot of people begin removing or taking or begin diversifying into options, then that right there will be a problem for that sector, which means that the first ones to get out will be okay, but the last ones to join that trend is going to be, S out of luck, if I can say that. So I would say consider, and I've heard people say, basically, get out of anything that's paper based in the form of a financial institution suggested vehicle, because they're usually carrying stocks, bonds, and stuff like that, which is all subject to correction, because all those bonds, stocks, all those things, even real estate, are all in bubbles. I'm sure we all can agree on that. So when the bubble burst, how much value will you actually have in that vehicle at that time? So diversifying out of those things might be worth your while, in my opinion. But I encourage you to RTD University, scroll through some of those videos. Some of those guests there are very smart. They have books on that stuff right there, so it'll definitely be of use. And then somebody says buy physical. Yeah. And then also, as an alternative, I'm not sure, I don't really recommend it, but I've heard about not self-funded, but you can basically roll over into precious metals IRAs and then actually take possession of all of those metals yourself and be your own custodian of your IRA. So there's things out there of that nature that I've heard about. So I would encourage you to check into it if you're interested. It says, can the government really just take your bank account? Bitter Truth G. Can the government take your bank account? I would imagine that they're desperate enough, they can pass a law any minute now that says that all funds inside of commercial banks must be turned over to the government because we're in a monetary financial crisis. And so I believe it's possible. Hasn't happened before. Typically, the banks just say you can't withdraw your funds and you're, out of luck. And then if it falls under that, that $250,000 FDIC insurance, which people are going to find out that there's not enough insurance available for all the amount of paper and digits in existence. But if people really wanted to get access to their cash, it's up to the bank, because technically once your money is in the bank, it belongs to the creditor who you loaned it to. So you're at their mercy. Bank, government, what's the difference? Yeah, the powers that be. They're all the powers that be. Says the banks own the Federal Reserve, which controls the government, who authorizes a bank bail-in. Very true. And if you want to find out more about the bail-in concept, I encourage you to read the Dodd-Frank Act. Google bail-in, Dodd-Frank Act, and you can actually read it for yourself. How I think FDIC will be the party that is in charge of the resolution and the intermediary type of as you call it, dissolving of conflict or something like that. So the FDIC is going to be the ones that authorizes your money to be bailed in. You are considered an unsecured creditor. The laws have been written already. Very true. It says, my understanding is that a bail-in already exists and they have every legal right in Cyprus. Yeah. So James, I think it was 2011 or 12 or 13 that Cyprus was bailed in. A lot of people consider it as a test run for what could come down the line. And so it's the bail-in doctrine is baked into all the developed world financial monetary policy, rather. As after the Great Recession, Dodd-Frank is our name for Dodd-Frank is the bill in the United States for the bail-in authority. And then UK has one, EU has one. So every developed world where all the funds are at has a bail-in some Dedollarization lingo in the monetary policy passed after the Great Recession. And it's all designed and packaged, and it was presented as a way of helping the banking system to not become insolvent in the case of another crisis. It says, how much time do you think we have left? How much time do we have left? That is that's the thing, like left until what? And that's the thing, there's so many things unfolding because there's a possible pending war that's on the forefront if, Donald Trump decides to, do something that would not be smart, which is to get involved in Syria. And I believe that's a war, or that's a fight that we can't win, in my opinion. But that's an event there. Then you have the whole financial situation. Then you have the global monetary, which is all tied together. So there's a lot of things happening, of which any minute now, something could be the catalyst to causes a complete domino trend. But I think we still have time. I don't really think none of these events are going to actually be something that's going to take us back to like this, the Mad Max days or something like that. I don't really think it's going to get to that point immediately, at least. It says Cyprus is proof of what will happen if they start taking your savings and 401k. And why? So I believe why was in regards to, says, so the U.S. government going to use the utility settlement coin still. Utility settlement coin. I don't know what the utility settlement coin is. I've never heard of that. It says, what we got here? Google Global Research Society. IT, it can help here. You can get the Bank of England bail-in document. Okay. So yeah, so Donald, thanks for posting that there. If anyone's interested there, the Bank of England's bail-in document. We got Andrew says, until they collapse about a year and a half or sooner, would it be worth it to stash away paper money as possible? Bitter truth, good question. You're going to need cash in the very immediate term because as things unravel, there's going to be a crunch on cash. Because when you think about how every other country has problems, initially it boils down to not enough cash because of deflation. People tend to hoard cash when credit's not available, and that's the only thing that people can actually get in their physical hands from the ATMs. So people are going to bombard the ATMs to get all the cash they can initially, and then that's when they're going to slowly put a allocation of how much you can get per day. And so any type of small denomination notes will be worthwhile because there's way more digits out there than there are actually paper notes to back up those digits. So remind you, everything in regards to Federal Reserve note is heavily, I want to say it's 30 trillion or 16 trillion or some huge 16 or 30 trillion, anywhere between there, of actual digital dollars that's in existence in all these financial vehicles, 401(k), 403(b)s, 401k, IRA, all those digits. They're all digits. All those things we've been talking about are digits. They're just digits in some hedge funds or some financial institution's computer. Now, if everyone decided to go allocate or to withdraw or to cash out all of those accounts, they'll find that there's only 1.7 or less than $2 trillion worth of paper that would have to go towards all those people looking to get into physical cash. So there's not enough cash. So having cash at the end of the day will be something that you might want to have. Let me see here what we got. It says everybody needs to start blatantly talking about how forced taxation is nothing more than slavery, further enabling these wars overseas and reckless spending. No more keeping it to yourselves. T. Hamilton, yeah, taxation is it's legalized theft. It's baked into the cake. It came right after the Federal Reserve Act was put into law, and on every front it's unconstitutional. But yet it's accepted as being law. Even though if you Google, what's his name, Peter Schiff's father, Irwin Schiff. If Google Irwin Schiff and all his documents, he's passed away, but he's a guy who dedicated his whole life to proving how fraudulent the taxation code is, because nowhere according to him, nowhere in the actual thick manual of the tax law book does it say that a person is a person, referring to an actual physical human being, is responsible for paying some type of tax. And you got a lot of legal jargon behind it, but And it's everyone who's tend to argue it and know how to argue it has pretty much proven that case right. So I do believe it myself. Now, I'm not one to go just go rogue and not really, be a lawful citizen in the meantime. So that's just my 2 cents. It says we are real power. We are the real value. We need unity. Very true. Unity usually comes after there's been some type of cause to get people fired up. Right now, people aren't fired up. People are very passive and distracted. So it's not until they feel the pinch in their pocketbooks or lose their savings or lose their retirement or pension or something like that people will get fired up. All right. They'll be looking for a cause, and the cause will be, who's the reason behind it. And of course, the government's going to say it was, it was China, it was Russia. They're loving the idea of pointing the blame on somebody else. When in actuality, it's it's our own government, that it's not even really, a United States entity, according to a lot of people. So, yeah, interesting. K-Rock 2012 says, what is your ideal financial system? If the government asks for your advice, what would be our system and why? Oh, man, that's a tough question. Because naturally I would want to say something that's sound and something that's that can't be printed or manipulated. But yet anything that's in the hands of a majority and not in the hands of anything that's in the hands of a few, not in the hands of the majority, stands to be manipulated. So I would say, I've read a lot about, living under sound money standard. I've heard the pros and the cons, but yet what really seems like the most ideal for me would be putting silver, which is considered the people's money, back into circulation, and making the free coinage of silver something that people have the option of, when they come across silver, being able to go get it minted, it being legal tender. And it will keep and alleviate the need for a central bank. We no longer need a private entity to control the elasticity of money and currency, and the idea of jobs, like like the fact that the Federal Reserve has a mandate to control the employment rate. Like, how the hell do you do that other than just lending credit or dropping interest rates, which forces companies to borrow, which allows them to hire? So that right there is all whack. So get rid of the Federal Reserve, implement silver back into circulation as legal tender, and allow people to utilize silver amongst themselves. And then, if need be, because it would be kind of hard to carry silver, then put a digital backed cryptocurrency blockchain type source attached to that, which allow you to go to the bank and you use your phone, and you can, if you want, you can just withdraw your silver, but actually make banks hold metals in them, so people know that they can go anytime they want down to the bank and get their store of value, which is, not going to be manipulated or fluctuate in value, which it would, because I'm sure somebody gonna find a way to do it that way. But that's just my thoughts. Let me see here. It says Ebony Eyes, HB 504. I think it meant HR 5404. America moving to gold standard in 39 months. Bill passed March 22nd, 2018. Fiat will be worthless. So, Ebony, you said that HB, assuming HR 5404, passed. Bill passed March 20. I wasn't aware that it passed. But if it does pass, if it does pass, then that'll be a step towards that direction. But it's good to say that it's going to be a lengthy process before it can actually get up and running again, just because I don't think the powers that be are going to allow that. And then you're going to run into the case of all those Federal Reserve notes. So the price of metals will have to be revalued heavily higher, which will be a problem as well. HBO 5 isn't moving out of the house. Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to get no gameplay. Dash says Russia, China's neighbors are planning to be the largest exporters of organic produce next year. I don't doubt it. And those neighbors you're referring to are all a part of that Belt and Road Initiative. So that Belt and Road Initiative, in this next decade, after this restructuring and however this shift takes place, that Belt and Road is going to be the place where all the new commerce, all the real trade is going to really be jumping off. especially with the Belt and Road that's going to be attached to what's happening down in Africa. It didn't pass, got introduced. Yeah, so yeah, I was thinking the same thing, meant 30 months. Green light, it says, read the news seeking China's plan to end dependency on American trade. They are moving their chess pieces into place soon. Won't the U.S. Silk Road need the U.S. Silk Road? Very true. Very true, very true. So what I want to do right now is I want to actually transition into some of the comments from today's post or whatnot. Basically, just show a little support for those that wanted to leave a comment, and just read through some of them and probably answer a question or two, and so see what just sticks out. And if I also have any other YouTubers out there that have channels where they're dedicated towards sharing truth and shining light on this entire monetary system that's a fraud, I'd definitely love to show you some love and encourage people to go check you out if you're putting in some work over there. So it says Ryan J here. What else we got? It says IMF would have no right for nor power to control. And so what else we got here? It says great job. Unfortunately, most people will not grasp these concepts. I do agree. Nothing will happen. It says it appears to me the U.S. is controlling the speed and process of de-dollarizing. That's from you, Tony. Excellent presentation. Great video. What else we got here? Anything stands out I'm trying to find. It says, I'm not sold on the SDR idea. It says it doesn't address the debt that already exists. It says if the debt is defaulted on or inflated away, what would really saying is what promises are being broken. Trust is lost. How does yet another Rothschild piece of paper restore the one thing that is very valuable and hard to create, which is trust? That's a very great statement there. And it's just the idea of the SDR from the article I did earlier being an option that is being suggested it could come into play. Remind you, the SDR, the special drawing rights, is going to be used amongst the governments or used amongst the countries, or I'm not sure if the central banks will probably still get the chance to conduct business on behalf of all these countries if the problems of the world are pointed to them directly. But I would imagine that the countries that all signed on to the SDR, and so it's made up of the 5 top nations, which if those nations have gold, which we know everyone might have gold except for the U.S., I can see governments as a way of speeding up some type of recovery effort, choosing to accept SDRs that's linked to gold as well, because there's a small percentage of gold inside of the SDR basket that wasn't mentioned there. And so I can see people accepting the SDR with the idea that as long as gold is included somehow, some way, then it's something they'll be willing to put their trust in. And mind you, most governments are going to be in panic mode anyway, because the population is going to be pissed and probably storming the capitals in all these countries looking for answers. So suggesting SDR amongst themselves to get things rolling again might be something that might work. Just my opinion. It says here, what we say here. It says the scheme won't work for many reasons. First off, China isn't buying oil with yuan, it's buying it with gold. China is believed to have about 1,900 tons of gold. That's about 64 million ounces worth of $83 billion when gold sells for $1,300 an ounce. And so, yeah, the whole idea of what the current price of gold is right now, $1,300, will not be the valuation in the days ahead when all those paper notes has to lay claim to, when all the metal has to be redeemed for that paper. So it's good to say that there's trillions upon trillions of yuan in existence versus both digital and paper. So they're going to need to readjust that price just as well as we are over here, because they have a lot of notes in circulation just like we do. So I can see, as a lot of people say, $40,000, $50,000 gold per ounce just to account for all that paper and digits that's in circulation. So I can see that being a possible scenario of just readjusting the price to account for all those paper. It'll work well for those that have an ounce or 2 or 3, because if gold is 50,000, silver has to be 1/10 of that supposedly. If not, I hear some people say possibly 1 to 1. So if gold is 50,000, then silver, hell, it's 50,000 as well. That'd be crazy. That'd be crazy. What else we got here? It says, let me be a ballpark figure for a real discovery price of silver. It says 1979, before the Hunt brothers went all out to counter the market, silver was $10 an ounce. After the Hunts were taken down in 1981, the price returned to $10 an ounce. says factoring the average price of silver today is about $16.50. Inflation from 1980-81 makes the true price of silver at $47.13. So we have Replay Randall. Gave us some great calculations here. So accounted for inflation at today's price of $16.50. Real silver is worth $47.13. As we saw the rise of silver past the point of 2011, I believe this discovery method has fair validity. It's fair validity. Yeah, that's interesting. Silver will be something else. Be something else. So that is just my little segment there of sharing with you guys. Sharing with you what's happening in the comment section there. What else we got here? So get back to some questions here. As always, you see the below the screen. Give me a call. Love to talk to you directly if you got a question or you want to share something with the audience here. I'd love to give you an opportunity to do that because the show is about a voice for the people. LIVE-RTD reporting here. First message. Hawaiian monarchs. So here's something that's worth considering. I actually attempted to go. I typed in news to see what's the latest on the whole Syrian situation, and I heard something about there's some missile cruisers off the coast or heading right to Syria right now, and then there's some ships heading out to China for whatever reason. So we got all these ships heading west, heading east, and heading up north everywhere. They're not going there. They're not burning. Excuse me, heartburn. They're not burning all that gas to get to those destinations for something not to jump off. So I imagine they're either going to poke at one of these nations, whether it be China or Syria. And so basically when we say Syria, you're saying Russia. They're going to poke at them and hoping for some type of false flag. Who knows? God forbid one of the U.S. missile cruisers gets hit by some type of sailboat and it goes down. They blame it on somebody, and all of a sudden there's a reason to shoot something off and all hell breaks loose. So I know one thing, by putting themselves in harm's way, something is going to jump off. So we'll see by tomorrow. That'll be the 48-hour time period whether Trump decides to make a foolish mistake and get involved in Syria because of the mainstream media really, egging them on, saying that's a crime against humanity. We must do something. Since when do we have to be the ones to go save everybody if something did happen there? And the idea that Assad is his regime, that's the reason it did it. If Trump just said last week that they leaving, why in the hell would he bomb his own people? Yeah, Tony says, so be careful, fake news. There will not be a war in Syria. Well, the idea that Israel already, let some missiles off lets me know that Syria has been invaded. If it's true that Israel did let off some missiles, so if that turns out to be true, then there is already a war going on. And I also read something or heard something about the UK sending some people down to Syria. So, not sure if they're just gaining up some hype to really say, okay, if Israel's making moves, the UK's making moves, then US, we can't be the last ones, and we're supposed to be the defenders of the free world type of thing. So who knows how they're gonna play it off? But yet, let's just pray that God spares us from this battle that we can't afford to fight, especially since there's a battle in DC. The war has already started. As a former combat infantryman, everyone needs to oppose any war they come up with next. Tired of these oligarchs getting rich off of nonsense war at the next generation expense. Very true. T. Hamilton. Thanks for sharing that, my friend. Syria is a distraction. Yep, Syria is a distraction. North Korea is a distraction. And just the idea that you saw Kim Jong-un and Xi Jinping hanging out last week or 2 weeks ago lets me know that I think China is trying to play the good guy bad, the good cop, as opposed to the U.S. playing the bad cop. And I would imagine if I was, just to guess that conversation, how it went, it was basically Xi Jinping saying, hey, man, we need you to dial back on the nuclear, because if you don't, you're going to give U.S. an incentive to come this way. So we'll help be the ally between you and the U.S. We'll take some of your bombs and this and that. We'll help you out. So it doesn't give them an excuse to come this way. So we'll see if that actually works. Sorry, caller, I just hung up on you. I'm sorry. Give me a call back. trying to express my last thought and take your call at the same time. So feel free to call back. So I lost my thought. So what else we got here? Is it practical? Is it practical to downsize U.S. Army considering the role the country is assuming internationally via the economic situation back home? Corey Maz, I think it's not possible, just because the whole reason the military is so scattered around the world is to so-called defend and to protect the world from terrorists and the boogeyman, but also it's more so to keep people in line with the idea that they have to continue to use the petrodollar. So if you remove warships from your area, there's no real threat. Hello, caller. How you doing? What's your name? Where you calling from?
My name's Austin. I'm from New York.
Austin from New York. Thank you for calling, my friend. What's on your mind this evening?
This whole Syria thing just reeks of a false flag. And I can't help but think this is deep state just warmongering.
I agree 100%, just because if you look at how everything lines up, it doesn't make sense. But it's not the first time that there's been some type of false flag or gas attack or chemical attack that just never added up. I know Obama had a couple that looked real suspicious at the wrong time. And it was interesting how Russia came in right away to be like the mediator / savior of Syria, and it worked quite well. And so I think that Trump's comment of moving out of Syria last week is what probably caused this current one, because the last thing the powers that be, deep state or whatever they're called, wants is the troops to come home, because that throws off their plan. And remind you, they still have that 7-country list of nations they got to destroy, and Syria and Iran is in that mix. So they need as much of an enemy as possible. And as they always say, the Assad regime just seems to be the right one to target right now.
But then my other problem is that Trump comes out and blames Assad immediately. So I don't know if I could trust him, or if he is just an underpowered to be, or
right. Yeah,
I can't even express my thoughts.
That's another good point, because during the campaign he ran on the idea of not playing along with the mainstream narrative of, like, Russia being our enemy. I remember he was so neutral towards Assad. He was just downplaying, saying, like, I'm not really sure what this guy going on. I'm sure he's a good guy, but I'm sure he has problems as a leader. But he was never point blank, this guy is wrong, this guy has to go, until now. So here's a scenario. With his lawyer's office basically just being raided, I can see that, along with the Syria situation, kind of playing hand in hand, because the FBI, I'd imagine they're looking for some evidence to hold over his head to say, hey, if you don't go, we got, a hard drive with you and all these such and suches. So take a choice. Either we come out with this, or you go to Syria like we want you to go. And so that's why I believe that 24 to 48 hour time frame he gave is probably in alignment with trying to figure out exactly what they may have on him, because so far, I'm sorry, say that again.
Like, who he needs to find out what information they have on him.
That could be a possibility. That could be a possibility, because I imagine for him to be a billionaire in that circle, in that club, there's some things that he probably did in his former life that they're trying to dig out. And so if they can find something from this lawyer to prove that young lady is a part of this equation, he's gonna have to make a real decision. Do he get on board with the deep state's plans of going in there and bombing and doing what they already was planned during Obama and Bush? Or does he, run on his campaign promises and really drain the swamp, which it seems like the swamp might be trying to get back at it right now?
I think this is Agenda 21 coming to fruition, World War III in the doorstep. I can't see it any other way from all the from over 2 years now being pushed the Russia evil agenda.
Yeah, so time will tell, man. I think this is very interesting that all this is happening at the same time, amongst all this financial, monetary, and just the trade wars.
Yeah, Petro just dropping, and
yeah, it's quite interesting, man. But yet, God, hopefully God spares us from this war this time, because I don't think we can afford it. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be our young men and women that's going to go over there in the name of freeing you know, the Syrian people, which I don't think they even, from what I've heard, Syria is not as bad as it's painted on our side of the water. So
nation. There's no reason for this to happen.
Exactly. I mean, we have no legal, lawful authority to be in that area whatsoever. But I guess being the #1 defender of the free world, as we are supposed to be, that justifies it. I guess even if the UN and everybody else said we can't go over there. So I think that's coming to an end pretty soon. But
just Israel's army.
Yeah. But man, I appreciate you. Appreciate you for calling and sharing your thoughts. Definitely, it's a lot.
Have a good night.
Thank you, my friend. You as well. Bye. Yeah, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. I think time will tell, man. Hopefully, by tomorrow night at this time, a wise, God-led decision takes place. So basically, all we can do is pray and trust that God will, you know, do the right thing, because ultimately He knows what's going to happen. He knows. Syria is a sovereign state. Yes, they are. It's a nation. And to my knowledge, a democratically elected official is president of that country. And according to various sources outside of the Western mainstream narrative, the people actually like him because they voted for him, you know, twice. So he's serving, I think, his second term. So, you know, I don't know if it's a biased election or whatever, but that's none of our business, to be honest with you. That's, you know, the Syrian people. 8 killed in M1 helicopter crash. Oh, snap. Jose Berrigan, what's that? Where's that from? Over Russia. Is that? So it says 8 killed in the M1 helicopter crash. I hope that wasn't. Oh, Marquise. My bad. USA copter. Hold on. USA copter. No. Hold on. Okay, I'm reading this wrong. USA copter. I gotta Google this. USA helicopter crash. I gotta find out what's happening. Helicopter crash over Russia. Kills at least 10. Yeah, I'm not seeing nothing as new news. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I don't see anything as new news as far as that subject matter there. So if Assad's government is a regime, then so is the Trump administration. Oh yeah, definitely. Isn't it just interesting how every news source, I guess their teleprompter says, whenever they talk about Syria, Assad, it probably reads right behind the screen as they're looking into the camera. You know, some Assad regime. They always mention it, throw regime in. That is something else. I've yet to see, especially in this wartime era, there's always regime. Like he doesn't have a, you know, Assad, was it Assad, Bashad, or Asir Bashad, whatever his name is, regime. That is crazy. Well, we got XH News. All right, so let me check that out. Says Sri Lanka. What we got here? China Zhenghu News. So it says 6 killed in M1 helicopter. Okay, I see it. Six killed in M1 or MI helicopter crash in Russia. Local media reported on Wednesday. So let me see. So yeah, it looks like it was apparently a Russian copter, which is a little bit different than any type of other helicopter, because last thing we need is a foreign helicopter crashing in Russia. Yeah. So this we approaching the hour mark. So as always, the goal is keeping an hour long. And so I appreciate the people who did call in. It was great having some live voices join me tonight. And so just working on this format a little bit to try to spice it up a little bit and make it more talk show worthy. So other than that, we'll be back on actually tomorrow night at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. I'm having a guest join me, David Modell, live. He's going to share with us his expertise in the crypto market as well as the financial sector. So make sure you guys tune in tomorrow night at 9:30 and then have some questions ready for a crypto person. And we'll get some questions answered for you. So feel free to call in as always. Same format, everything the same. call in and share what's on your mind. And more importantly, give this video a thumbs up, share this information, share this video if you like, want to get more people in tune with what's happening, and get people to watch RTD videos where you can learn a lot. So, and other than that, if you have not, just a reminder, want to have you, I'm going to pull up right now. If you have not as of yet, visit the RTD University page where I've had all my prior interviews, but more importantly, making sure that everyone has a chance to download the free ebook, 5 Reasons to Hold Precious Metals Before the Next Recession. And so I'm going to pull that page up. And then other than that, we are out of here for this evening. Still trying to learn how to iron these kinks out. So if you guys, rethinkingdollar.com/5 reasons, give you a chance to just click this link right here. If you click this link, you'll get a chance to download the book immediately. And then also what I would like people to do is to show me a little love right here in these buttons right here where it says share this on your social media. So you can just click whatever whatever social media platform you choose, and get the word get out there. And then also have the university link here if you want to. I have some 3D virtual things here worth checking out. Then I have some recommended books. Then also I'm working on a webinar that I've actually been really banging my head against doing research for. So definitely going to be doing that. So make sure you guys take advantage of these resources. And if you feel led to, feel free to donate to RTD, because that definitely helps me in my efforts to continue to educate. Frees up a little bit of time for me to do news interviews and whatnot. And so click the link there to donate if you would like. So that is going to be it for tonight. Thanks for tuning in to RTD Live Talk. Enjoy yourself, and I'll see you guys tomorrow night, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, with a guest. So see you there. Have a good night.